Stay up to date with all that's happening with the new National Party, NNP. Send us a message via text or WhatsApp on 405-8683 with your name, email, and constituency. Stay in the know with NNP. Get updated.
Every election campaign is full of old talk and grand promises. Let history be your guide. Is who likely to better perform in government. Election is not about choosing perfect. They are about choosing the best one offer. Vote competent. Vote the NNP.
I worked in the public service for 30 years, and it's nothing compared to politics, where you have to represent your constituency and you have to represent your ministry. And this double role is very challenging because I have the largest constituency to deal with. And unless you love people and put people at the center of what you're doing, it becomes a monumental task. But I've found the challenge to be one that both rewarding, satisfying, and is for the last 1.5 years I've learned so much about people that I never thought I would learn. My biggest success is the amount of students I got to go to university. In China, in Cuba, in SGU and TAMCC. I believe the only way to come out of poverty is through education. Because I born in a very poor family, but because of education I'm here today. And I encourage all young people to pursue higher education. Let us all keep moving in Grenada. The new National Party has been good to St. David's, and more is coming. Youth unemployment has reduced drastically. Infrastructure has improved. The standard of living of people have improved over the years. Our focus is to ensure that all our people in St. David's improve in their way of life and standard of living. And we are giving hope to young people. It is a united team that can deliver such hope to people and such benefits. And therefore, this is not the time to take risk with the future. We must be committed to the present. And I say to you, let us all keep moving.
Moving on, more private sector investment. Everywhere is more development. Let's keep moving on. Let's keep moving on. NDC main position is to be the opposition. Them fellas not ready to lead. All they have on the mind is greed. If you want the country move on in a positive direction, let your vote remain the same. Vote for NNP again. Keep moving, keep moving, keep moving, keep moving. Let's keep moving on. Let's keep moving on. Keep moving, keep moving, keep moving, keep moving. Let's keep moving on. Let's keep moving on. Right now we need on fire. Everybody's got the St. David's. Say we want Oliver. Say we want Oliver. Say we want Oliver. Who we voting for? Oliver. Say we want Oliver. Say we want Oliver. Say we want Oliver.
And good morning to you, Grenada, Carriacou, Petite Martinique, the rest of the Eastern Caribbean, wherever you are locally, regionally, or internationally. Once again, it is time for Hard Talk. My name is Sheldon Scott.
And I'm Devon Romain.
Yes, and we have a third person in studio with us. In case you didn't hear the tune, you should know who they are.
Fire, NDC expire. St. David's voting Oliver. NDC expire.
Yes, indeed. We do have the Honorable Oliver Joseph in studio with us. Good morning, Minister.
Good morning. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yes, indeed. Your first time on Hard Talk? Yeah, very
First
very
time
busy.
in a long time.
very busy minister. Very first time while I am in the chair
Yes, in the
here.
chair, yes.
But he has been here
before,
yeah?
yes.
Nice indeed. And of course, You're the minister of, remind me, that one does be kind of long and scary. I know it's cooperatives and what? No, cooperatives still, it's all kind of thing.
Yes. I spent 4.5 years as Minister of Economic Development, Trade, Planning, Cooperatives, and recently Minister for Labor and Cooperatives.
Oh, yeah, and I just had youth and sport and ecclesiastic affairs. I'm at about 12 now. Indeed. Before we go any further, just saying a special good morning to all the listeners via the various radio stations. 97.5 FM, City Sound FM.
89.5 CRFM.
92.9 out there in Carriacou and Petit Martinique.
And in New York City, 94.9 We Vibes Radio.
And again, I come on the program and forget to take the frequency at the other station, you know. That is broadcasting Hard Talk. We're also online on Hard Talk Grenada. You can go on Facebook. Yeah, and all of you on Facebook, hey, Tati, she already says good morning to you, Minister. And folks, hey, yes, my dear. Yes, she another person shouting out, look there, rep. Well, all the people getting on bad on that Facebook early this morning, so, hey, yes, all right. Listen, out there in Tortola, good morning to you. All right, yeah. And remember, folks, to like and share the video. Like and share the video. We have a man inside here that has a lot of information that he's going to be sharing. Yeah? Unlike another political party, they have a candidate in the same constituency that doesn't put him nowhere. You know? But he doesn't never see that man on a TV or radio program. They ain't putting that man outside there. You know?
I don't even know what
but
the man does or what he has to offer for the people of St. David's.
This minister does be on all kind of TV program, radio program, all kind of thing on a regular basis. They put up a man against him. The man never on a program, you know. Like, they're afraid to make the man talk. What they're afraid.
And the beautiful thing of Honorable Oliver Joseph is that he is not just a parliamentary rep, right, or the Minister of Economic Affairs or so, but he's a person that is rooted within the entire St. David's community, right? Yes, indeed. True representation. And that's what is needed.
Minister, let's come back to you now. Let's tell us a bit about Oliver Joseph. Tell us about yourself. Tell us where you come from, your parents. We want to know.
Yeah, okay. Well, I was born into a large family. I'm the 8th of 11 children. In poor rural family and strong Catholic upbringing. And my emphasis is always on education because I recognize that education is the only thing to lift you out of poverty. And so I pursued higher education at the University of West Indies, where I did economics. Then I did my postgraduate diploma in Geneva, Switzerland. And then I did my master's degree in Aberdeen, Scotland. And prepare myself to come back to give service to the people of Grenada. I worked for 30 years in the public service, from class 2 clerk to permanent secretary. Wow. And 3 years as a regional public servant with the CARICAD, Caribbean Regional Development Organization Institute, where I was integration specialist. And my job there for the 3 years, I had to visit every CARICOM member states to train them on the procedures for the free movement of CARICOM National. And I prepared the manual that is used by all border officials in CARICOM on the procedures for free movement. That was part of my job, and that was something that the CARICOM secretary hired me to do while there as a consultant with CARICAD to prepare this training manual. And that training manual is used all over CARICOM. And then I came back to Grenada with no intention of getting involved in politics. But at the last minute, you recall the last election, the same day I was launched in Wester Hall, the same day NDC was in Sotez, and they announced the date for the election. So I had 1 month. First time, 1 month. No training, nothing. But I must say the last election, people were so in a mood to get rid of the government that it was very easy. I did not have much work to do. And of course, the team ahead of me did a lot of work on the ground. And, you know, St. David's had won the election. In the NDC won St. David's in 2003 and 2008. So 2013, and the ground, they say, well, this new person, we don't even know this guy. He never involved in any politics. And they're going to put a new. They say, we'll teach him a lesson. Give him the worst defeat he'll ever get. Because he just come back and he's not known. But the people wanted a change so badly. But when they announced me there was a mass increase in the number of people who went to register. I was shocked. The number of people, they said, this is the new candidate. Well, we have to vote, and therefore there was a mass registration. And I must say I was well accepted by the people of St. David's.
Yeah.
And St. David's, I don't know if you know that, is a very Catholic constituency. Both Mr. Lett and I serve in the St. Vincent de Paul Society. I'm still a member of the St. Vincent de Paul Society at the Catholic Church, which is the arm that does the charitable work. So I've been serving people in my own personal capacity and within the organization for the last 40 years. So getting involved in politics to serve people come natural. And if you don't love people, you can, and people find out very quick, If you don't love people, they get to know. So I am pleased to be given the opportunity to serve people and do it through a party that cares about people. And that is why I came forward for the new National Party. And when I entered the politics, I said totally unprepared, so I had to learn quickly. And I was placed in a big ministry, and then we had to go through the structural adjustment program, of which I played an integral role, and I'll discuss later with you. But that's who I am, poor humble man.
How was the transition from being in the government service as a permanent secretary, the person who carries out the mandate of the minister? How easy was it for you to flip from being the permanent secretary to the person who is passing on the instructions to the permanent secretary?
Well, it's two different roles now, completely different, because as a permanent secretary, your role is to carry out the policies of the government. So if the government comes with a policy that they will, for the particular year, the emphasis will be housing. So most of the, whether personally I'm against that and they say there should be something else, that's not my prerogative. That's the government policy. The government policy is that, and I must advise the minister the best way to carry out this policy, the most effective way to do it. That's my role. Now you go in and sit in the cabinet and a policy decision is made, I have to convey that to the permanent secretary and say, this is the policy decision, this is the direction, and we need to get it implemented. But because I was in that chair, I understand how it is to implement policies effectively. And so while I'm conveying government policy now and helping formulate it, I think it put me in a better position because I understand what needs to be done, unlike a new minister coming from, say, private practice and coming into government, have no clue. And so he goes to the permanent secretary, and the permanent secretary says, well, I don't think this thing could work,
You would have an idea beforehand.
Of course, I know how we're going to work. I am in a stronger position to say this is how we're going to do it. And therefore, that role change, I was able to fit in quite easily. The big challenge for me was responding to the needs in the constituency.
So the conversion from constituent to the MP.
Yes.
that was the challenge.
That was the challenge. Yes. But I must say I had full support of the rest of the members of the team in working together. And I think you see this unity thing, I think we underestimate it when you have a team. Listen, people have different interests. As ministers, we go there, and as parliamentary representative, with our own interests, I want certain things for St. David's, you want for St. Mark's, you want for St. Andrew's. You need a strong leader to say, listen, this is the direction we go in. You cannot get everything you want, but that is what we're aiming to, and that will be the outcome. And you have to have a team that have to understand that. Now, because I'm in there now, I get to better understand the confusion that the former government had. Because if you do not have strong leadership, you cannot get your policies carried out. You spend too much time to settle differences. If you're spending all your time trying to keep men quiet, trying to get them to follow, well, you will have time to really run the affairs of the country. And now it coming to me how important that is to have a united team. A team, for example, let me give the most recent example, the sword-turning ceremony. And when I come to my constituency, I'll talk about it, but just as an example, St. Davis is going to get 226 housing units. Well, you know housing is a major problem. Do you know, every MP will come there and say, I want in my constituency, you don't think so? But you have limited amount. So it's how you allocate your scarce resources to get the optimal results. That is what you have to focus on. So I'll be there fighting and say, well, St. David's is the largest constituency, and therefore St. David's must get the larger percentage.
But I can testify. Yes, I can testify
So-
that is so, because I have sat in various meetings with you.
Yeah.
When you have always said, just remember, St. David's have to get a little more than everybody
That's
else.
right.
Or sometimes before you even open his mouth and he say that, Prime Minister will look across and say, well, you know, St. David is a special case. We have to
Yes,
before he preempt him.
yes. So working as a team is important for the other team members to understand that.
Okay.
Otherwise, you could take a strong position and say, in St. Andrews, you know, we don't have that. So, but when people come around and say, yes, give St. David's a little more, you know, as a united team, that makes a big difference.
I often said, I know we'll be coming to the constituency in a while, but I often say St. David is like taking a cup of water and pouring it in the sea and then trying to find that water that you pour into the sea. It's so large that as much as you do, considering what happened to St. David's over the years, as much as you do, it always looks like you ain't do enough.
Yes, it looks
It
so,
always looks like you ain't do enough, no matter how much you do.
but I said I will outline later in the program all of the data,
Yeah.
you know, in the particular APD.
Minister, you mentioned the economy a while ago. You're attached to the Ministry of Finance and so as well. Give us a little insight. We came into office 2013. I know that Prime Minister was sworn in on the 20th of February 2013 at the Trade Center. Immediately on finishing being sworn in, he went to the back of the nearly said stadium. He went to the back of the Trade Center and met with the officials from the Ministry of Finance and some regional persons that were here because they wasn't getting paid. What was the situation we met when we came in?
Right. So everyone, they still remember the days when salaries were not paid on time. Obviously, the government did not have the revenue to pay the salaries. So imagine you couldn't pay salaries in January. We come in on the 19th, and we looking to pay salaries by the 26th. 7 days time, you know. You have to pay salaries. So the question is, where would you get the money? But let me. I will start off from there. But I want to explain the whole situation, economic situation, as in economics would say, from a macroeconomic point of view. Now, if you go to the doctor, he says, "Let me just test your pressure, your sugar, and other things." Look, what are the indicators that will point him to what is wrong with you? That is what he's trying to determine there, you know. The same thing with the economy. There are certain macroeconomic indicators that economists look for in the economy to determine how the economy is functioning. And I'll go to them one by one and explain when we came in, where we met it, and then say what we did to correct it. So we start up with the first thing, and you come with the salary. Government raised revenue, what we call fiscal measures, and when we say fiscal, we mean tax. So for the listening public, anytime you hear fiscal measures, you're talking about taxation. Tax measures, that's fiscal. Your monetary policy, but when we talk about monetary policy, we're talking about the value of the currency, interest rate on lending for the banks and so on. These factors are controlled by the central bank. So in other words, we as Grenada do not have control over monetary policy. So we cannot ask the central bank to print money for us. So that's the first thing you have to understand. Barbados are the own central bank, Trinidad the central bank, Guyana the central bank, and they could print. We cannot instruct the central bank to print money. So we have to use fiscal policies and make fiscal adjustments. Taxation, tax policies. So when we came into office, the first thing, 70 cents and every dollar that was collected in current revenue went to paying salaries, wages, pension. 70 cents or 70% of all the money collected. It means that you only have 30 cents to take care of the hospital, all your government institution, provide assistance.
Not 30 cents to the hospital, but out of that 30%.
Yes, you have 30%. I'm saying out of the 30%, you have to use it for hospital, for all institutions, or social services, for everything else. So you have 30 cents. And that figure is never disputed and cannot be disputed because they were saying that. that the 70 cents, and we have to do something about it, but it did nothing. Now, the ideal situation is to be where you're just under 50%, right? So you have 50% left to do other things. So we had to correct that. We had to make that adjustment. And I want you to make note of that. As I said, I will explain each of them in detail. You're running at 70 cents on every dollar for salaries, wages, pension. Then you're running a monthly deficit of $18 million. What that means? Every month, government is spending 18 million more than it's collecting. Well, you know, if there is a business, it busts already. But government has the ability to borrow and to raise taxes to continue. $18 million in deficit. So if you're collecting 32 million in revenue monthly and you're spending 50 million, well, that is unsustainable. So let me address now how we deal with these two variables first. The first one, 70 cents, we need to get it down. So no, we took the decision that we enter a structural adjustment program because we wanted a whole program to correct all these things. So we say, let us agree on a structural adjustment program, get the support of the fund, the IMF. Now, we did not get into an IMF program. We developed a program and got the support of the IMF. And why is that important? If the IMF come in when you develop your program and make a statement that Grenada is taking measures to correct its economy and it's on the right track, the World Bank, the European Union, the Caribbean Development, all of them will use that as a basis for giving you money. And so we still in the first year when we came in. So we developed the structural adjustment program, went to the fund. There is something called the extended credit facility, which every member state can get what you have a quota. Our quota there was almost 21.5 million. That is all we had. So we went in, they said over the 3 years, we'll get the 21.5 as a standby extended credit facility. So that was all we were entitled to from the fund. But because we went into the structural adjustment program, and the IMF said we in a song program, we set all the targets to meet. You know, at the end of the first year, the Minister of Finance said in Parliament that we expected to receive $100 million in support. You know, at the end of the first year, we got $108 million in support from the World Bank, the European Union, and the Caribbean. The $108 million in support after we made the first year target. So what are these?
So that was our handshake for setting achievable goals, and not only achieving, but in some cases surpassing those goals.
But for the government taking the decision to implement these measures to correct the economy, because we had to take measures to deal with what? How do you get on a deficit from $18 million? How do you do that? So we had to agree. We said these are the measures we will take. The fund look at it, give some advice in certain areas, and we came to an agreement. We said, let me think. We said that we will get down the deficit from $18 million. In 3 years, we will get it down to zero. Meaning, we will put in measures where we will collect revenue on a monthly basis to meet our expenditure. That is what it means. So we look at our tax situation. Again, it's fiscal measures you're looking at. And we said, let us see what areas that we can make some adjustment to the taxes. Because we had the lowest tax base in the whole of CARICOM. And that was a good thing because it gave us opportunity to move. For example, our income tax was only taxed at over 5,000, whereas all the other countries were way down. So we said, let us drop it to 3,000 and put a 15% tax there. So you have two bands. 15% if you're between 3,000 and 5,000, and 30% out of over 5,000. Because you need to collect more revenue. And then we said, we look at the efficiency of the system. Because there are a lot of outstanding taxes. How do you get people to comply? Because we had a problem with a low rate of compliance. And we took measures to bring it down. So we set the target. And then we said, well, how do you get on 70% to 50%? We have to set targets. What measures will we take? You know what one of the things that the fund recommended? Well, since you're using 70% of your money to pay the wage bill, why don't you send them 2,000 workers and cut it down to 50?
So that was a suggestion
from the fund?
From the International Monetary Fund.
Yes, that's right.
That the Grenada government, the one that you're part of,
yes,
the one that I'm part of,
right?
Well, was part of, that they send home 2,000 Grenadian workers.
Yeah,
from the
approximately
public
the
service.
figure.
Yeah.
Well, because you want it down to 50.
Yeah.
We said we will get it down to 50 without sending home a single worker. And let me tell you, so we set the target at 50%. And we said we would not. So they said, well, tell us how. We said we'll get an attrition policy in place. For every 10 persons that retire, we'll only take in 3. If it was 3 for 10, suppose you buy beer 3 for 10. Mm-hmm. So it's a 3 for 10. Every 10 that go, we'll take in 3. So the natural attrition. And we will freeze position in the public service. We wouldn't create no new position. They say, well, in 3 years, that will not be sufficient. We say no, and at the same time, we will increase revenue and cut back on expenditure. If you're spending more than you're earning, you need to do 2 things. Increase your revenue because you're spending more, and cut your expenditure. So we increase the revenue and cut expenditure by 20%. And then we implement the attrition policy. At the end of the 3-year program, you know what we achieved? 48%. Instead of, we said 50, you know. Mm-hmm. 48% now. We achieved 40. We brought it down from 70 to 48 without sending home a single worker. And that is fact. And that all could be checked. Nobody can challenge me on that fact. Because it's there. It's published that we're using 48 cents now and every dollar to pay wages, salaries, pensions. And we have 52 cents now to spend on social services, health care, and everything else. And that is what the IMF and the World Bank is amazed of. And saying that we have to put that as a model for countries to achieve.
We know usually the IMF is a bad word in nearly every country on this planet. Because just what they were suggesting to Grenada is the first thing that they come in and say. The first thing they come in and say is fire people.
Exactly.
So whether it's Trinidad that I think right now.
Barbados, Trinidad, Jamaica.
Yeah.
They say cut. Well, that is the easiest way to get it. You know? Well, yeah, but if you're using 70% to pay a workforce of 6,000, the calculation is easy, you know. Mm-hmm. If you cut it by 1/3 and you cut your expenditure down by 1/3. Yeah. So we said we're not sending home a single worker and we will get it down to 50. That was the target that was set, you know. Mm-hmm. And we got it down to 48%. They are amazed that we achieve this target. So that is the target of the 70%, right? Mm-hmm. So I'll deal with the deficit now. I told you 18 million every month. Mm-hmm. We said we have to get it down. So we said we need to increase revenue, cut expenditure, the same method. So reduce your expenditure because you're spending too much, which you cannot afford. You're living above your means then. Yeah. So if you're living above your means, your salary 2,000, but your expenditure every month is 3,000. Well, you have to cut. So we cut on non-personnel expenditure, we increase revenue. And you know what we achieve at the end of the 3 year? A 5% surplus. These things must not be taken lightly, you know. So in other words, surplus, you know, on the recurrent side. Now, every time I use the word surplus, trade unions say to me, well, you have a surplus amount of money. No. In the budget, you have the capital side and the recurrent side. So the surplus I'm talking about is on the recurrent side. The recurrent because every month you have to meet this expenditure. So that's why it's called recurrent expenditure. But you could have a deficit. You could have an overall deficit, you know. Because on the capital side, where we are looking to get grants, we fall short. So the money from the recurrent side has to go towards the capital side. So you could have a recurrent surplus of 5% and an overall budget deficit, you know. If you don't collect enough money from grants as your budget to meet that amount, then you have to put it there. So in other words, excess money is that we are managing the expenditure side properly. So that when we say we estimated 300 million in revenue, we collect 315 million. So we say, well, these 15 million have to go towards capital expenditure. So people must not mistake and say, well, you have a surplus now, so we go get the money. No, we still have a lot of work to do because you don't want to go and borrow money for capital expenditure because you have to keep on borrowing. So the more money you could raise to have on the current side is better for you. Less money you have to go and borrow. Because this 15 million you have to go and borrow it. And we cannot go back into the... And I'll come to the other indicator in a minute. So I'm just explaining the first two, the 18 million deficit and the 70%, which we have achieved and surpassed, right? Which we did.
Okay.
Then we come now to the famous debt to GDP ratio, which you hear all over the place. So I need to explain that.
Yeah, because a lot of people hear that and then they say, okay, debt to GDP, and some people might even jump up, yes, it got down to that, but they don't know what it really is.
Well, you can't blame
the average man doesn't know what it really is.
And it doesn't matter to him. What matters to him, how he benefiting on the ground.
Yeah.
So that's what I need to explain. How he benefit him. So when we came in, debt to GDP ratio was 108%. It means that your debt was more than your total GDP. Now your GDP, as it says, gross, so everything that you produce domestically, the D, gross domestic product, what you produce. So that is how you get GDP. Right?
So
and then
all the fisheries and
everything
agriculture
that you produce locally.
and everything.
And you could see GDP at market value or nominal GDP. At market value, where when taxes and things are added, and you get it, right? So we use nominal GDP. So you calculate everything that's been produced locally, so nothing that coming is added, everything produced locally, as the total. So the first thing you was look at your GDP, and then you look at your debt. So you have your debt stock, that is the amount of debt you accumulate. And when we came in, it was 108%. Well, I hear they argue and say it was 107. So that's all right. Let me say 107 then. You see no difference in it.
There must be a point somewhere there that was on the upper end. But anyway.
Anyway, yeah, so that is what it was. So if your debt is more than your GDP, your ability to service the debt is weakened. Your ability to service debt. You have a good ability to service your debt when your debt is less than your GDP. That is why I say America could borrow trillions, because America GDP is in the trillions. So they don't bother, they could service their debt. You might hear America, their trillion. What's about the GDP? Ask what is their GDP? They are the largest GDP in the world. So the debt to GDP ratio is. So we said we need to bring down. How did we do it? How did we bring down the debt then? We enter into a debt restructuring program. So in March, we announced to the creditors that we cannot pay.
That's March of 2013.
13, yes.
Yeah.
So when the rating come out, they say they put us in selective default. Well, we inform you that not paying, not default. But that's how the rating agencies term it, selective default. Yes, we're not paying. We cannot pay. We need to restructure the debt. So we said that to the creditors. We're not in a position to pay you now. We have to deal with the local economy. But we owe you bonds that we're going to mature, and we have to pay you. So we say, let us sit down and talk. So we appoint a team to meet with our creditors. And we say, give them the clear instruction. Your mandate is to get a 50% reduction. You know the famous term haircut?
Yeah.
Say 50% reduction on the debt. So imagine now, I came to the government of Grenada as an investor, and you invest 100 million. I come back. Years later, I tell you, well, sorry, I can't pay back. You have to take you 50. Then never would be an easy negotiation.
No.
You asking after I give you the
money.
Exactly. And after I give you the 100 million, tell me 50 million, you could pay me back. So they say we could never get this haircut. So nobody will agree to that. We hire the advisors, they walk through there, they meet with the creditors, we say, watch, if you agree and the haircut, we can start to pay you immediately. If you don't, we have to work with a longer schedule. That might take us 50 years to pay you. I mean, that is basic strategy they would use. So he said, after a long negotiation, they agreed finally on the haircut, how we're going to pay the balance, at what interest rate, and everything like that. We also had a debt with Taiwan, negotiated. We got the 50% reduction in the debt. That gave us debt forgiveness of over 400 million. Again, the international financial institution was quite amazed that we could get that haircut. I mean, they were quite happy for Grenada. Said, you're on the right track. Then he said, so that's how we started getting a reduction in the debt. And we took a policy decision that will not incur debt unless it is concessionary. So concessionary comes with some terms like the World Bank loan, for example, World Bank development loan, 40 years, 10 years grace period,
So you don't pay anything for 10 years. Right.
And 0.75% interest for the next 30 years. So these are what we call concessionary loans. Any loan we get in now must be under 4%. And the period, we must have a long repayment period. That's the only how we get into any debt. So we took that as a policy decision. And most importantly, though, we went to Parliament and passed the Fiscal Responsibility Act, where we put there all the debt targets in a law, Fiscal Responsibility Act, an act of Parliament, which if we break, then there are consequences. They can't put Grenada in jail. But if you go and start spending now and get outside of the targets you set, the IMF just had to put out a report saying Grenada has gone back to its old ways, have been reckless, of spending, bringing up the debt, and nobody giving you money. Just like when they put out a good report, you get the money. When they put out a bad report, you don't get. So there are consequences. So in this Fiscal Responsibility Act, and by the way, Uncle Grenada and Jamaica have the fiscal responsibility legislation.
No other Caribbean.
No other Caribbean, no. Because you see, when you put it in law, what I met two finance ministers. I went to a finance minister to represent Doc, the finance ministers meeting. He said, when you put that in law, you bind yourself, because if you want a little leeway to spend some extra money and you go above the target, you're in trouble.
For instance, there's a talk now that campaign coming up, they're spending extra money.
Exactly.
That can't happen.
It can't happen. And with the wages and salaries, we say 9% of GDP in any fiscal year could be allocated to it. So when the salary negotiation come, we said what? If we give you more, we are agreeing 10%, 3, 3, and 4. And it goes above the 9%, then we're in trouble. We have to stick to what we put. And some of the finance ministers were saying, watch, we have that as a policy document, but we're not going to Parliament with it. We said the only how we could be disciplined and do not get back to the situation that I mentioned is to be put it in law. So it causes us to be disciplined with our expenditures and how we manage the economy. And so the Fiscal Responsibility Act. And then we have an oversight committee, Fiscal Responsibility Oversight Committee. In the other country that have it, they do not have that same fiscal oversight. They have the Accountant General as the person who reports on it. We have a totally independent committee, chaired by Richard Duncan. Totally independent. And they do the analysis and send it.
The government has nothing to do with that.
No. And they produce the report. When we go to Parliament, we can't change the report. The report is what it is. If there are any things there that are not factual, we could ask them to review it. But because of this Fiscal Responsibility Act and the Oversight Committee that keeps us in check, this economy has witnessed growth of over 5% every year. Usually in a structural adjustment program, you don't get growth, you know, because the measures you have to take would not allow. But we had growth averaging 5%. And that is an achievement, again, that baffled the IMF. I remember the leader of the IMF team saying, Grenada is a real model country, you know. And because of what we did. So we have taken some strong measures. And I must mention, though, the Committee of Social Partners, chaired by the Prime Minister, where you have trade union, the churches, the CHIP, that came together. And the Prime Minister said, look, this is the situation in the country, and we need to correct it, and that is what we need to do, and we'll need your support. And that's give full support to Grenada's development, because they start seeing it as Grenada. You know what they said to me? Well, I will talk from the churches what they said to me, because we have a smaller committee. Minister, do not go back to the situation that we was in before. Now that you have achieved all these targets, do not go spending money. And then you get back into the same situation that you're in. Because you make all the sacrifice. It's just like I go back to where I started. You go to the doctor, it say, give you medication, the sugar level down, cholesterol down, and then you feel you could go and fat now. And then you go back up.
Minister, we're going to take a short one right here, because we've been having a very interesting conversation. Folks, remember to like and share the video.
Send the bits. Say who we want, Oliver. Say who we want, Oliver. Say who we want, Oliver. Who we voting for, Oliver. Say who we want, Oliver. Say who we want, Oliver. Say who we want, Oliver. Who we voting for, Oliver. Say say Adrian, when you go realize, you want NDC and then away. Hey boy, say Adrian, when you go realize, we ain't putting back nothing in there. Hey boy, so don't put your pot on fire. NDC expire, St. David's voting now liver. NDC expire, the people tired with all you. NDC expire, don't make your head hot boy, listen. NDC expire, this country moving, that we know for sure. With the winning team, good Mr. Oliver, your party don't fail, that was proven before. Your leader ain't have a clue which direction he should go, so what tell you? So Adrian, when you go realize, you want NDC and then away. Say Adrian, when you go realize, we ain't putting back nothing in there. Hey boy, so don't put your pot on fire. NDC expire, send it voting now liver. NDC expire, the people tired with all your. NDC expire, don't make your head hot boy, listen. NDC expire, we developing and St. David's getting its share. Still lots more to do, I'm confident we will get there. Back in your party ring, this parish never get a thing. So you have to be crazy to feel we bring in all your back in, and I tell you, say Adrian, when you go realize, you want NDC and then away. Say Adrian, when you go realize, we ain't put.
Yes, indeed, folks, we're right here. You know, sometimes you got to take a break. I had to give the minister a chance to drink some water and thing, you know.
Nah, go no way.
What does do all that? I had to give the minister some chance to drink some water and so on. Yeah?
So much information.
Yes, go right ahead, man.
Minister Joseph, good morning. And I must, having listening to you and so, explain about the economy and the support, the cooperation you have been, getting from different sectors and so. During the structural adjustment program, in all the difficulties and so that we had, give us an idea of some of the benefits and some of the things that were given to our workers, to the people of Grenada during that period, despite the difficulties that we went through. And so, what was extended to our workers and the general population on a whole, to make it,
Yeah, well, I'm happy you asked that question because, listen, when we came into office, there was an agreement between the unions and the NDC to pay a 6% increase. People keep forgetting that. The agreement was signed in early February, before the election, and was supposed to be paid in April, so after the election. Any agreement that's signed between a government and union or any other parties is binding on us. We're the government. We can't say we didn't sign it. So we had to pay the 6% increase and one-off payment to public officers. So we said, listen, we're in a position where struggling to pay salaries, and now we have to pay the 6%. Now we have to pay it back. Where we will get, it was approximately 40 million in the first year, and we had to find that money to pay. So sometimes when people talk about the sacrifice that they made, make it sound as they did not get anything during the 3-year structural adjustment program, which is totally incorrect. They got the 6% increase and they got the short payment. We paid that within the period of the structural adjustment. We did not pay the increment. We had said, well, we put a whole increment, but we paid it after. So during the structural adjustment program, we paid increases and we paid the one-off payment. Then we negotiated with the unions for further increases, because every 3 years the union had a negotiation. And we agreed with the union and a 10% increase. 2017, 3%, 2018, 3%, 4%, 2019. And then we paid a one-off, remember the $1,000 as for the sacrifice that were made for the 3 years.
Was that part of the agreement at the beginning of the entire thing, that there would be a one-off payment at the end, or was that just government saying thank you for all your hard work and your sacrifices that you have made during the period?
Right. So it was not from the beginning. It was after successful completion of the program. He said, well, you have made sacrifice, and the government, based on government's ability to pay, and without going against the Fiscal Responsibility Act, we paid the 1,000. Now the calculation is very simple. If you have 7,000 workers, and you give each of them 1,000, that's 7 million, you know. Just like that, you know. So we paid out the approximately $7 million for the one-off, and said if the fiscal space allows, by July the following year, that is in 2017, we could consider more if we had the fiscal space. And as I explained, the fiscal space means that the wages salaries must not exceed 9% of GDP. So if you have a bigger GDP, 9% will be a bigger amount. So if the fiscal space allows. So the unions came back, government put an offer on the table. Some association accepted it, and the final amount is not yet settled, so I don't want to go too much into that. But over the period that the last 4 years, we paid out $110 million to public servants. When I say public servants, now I talk about all government workers, teachers, prison, police, everybody,
nurses,
public servants. $110 million to them. Now, you say, well, where this money come from?
Just make sure parliamentarians are not included. Right.
Yes, you're right. Yes, no member of parliament got, and we made sacrifice. No, in fact, I'll say we probably made more sacrifice than anybody else.
Paying the income tax at 2 levels.
Yes, exactly. And with the small salary.
See, $700 a month going to that tax.
Go ahead.
No, just about looking at all that, the monetary side of it. Now, there have also been other benefits given to public workers, teachers, workers, and so to help bring their status up. Could you just give us, not too much time, but could you give us an outline of some of the other benefits that were given during the structural adjustment program to workers?
Right. So we have what they call fringe benefit. So, for example, the union will come and say we want uniform allowance. We want some of our people to get traveling allowance. There are a number of allowances that they will come to, and all these are costs because they want allowance. For example, the government contributes to the medical insurance plan of public workers, union, and teachers. They contribute directly because I was a member of the plan, and I know how much government paid towards the policy, the premium, and that is costing government a lot of money. So, and then the union they said, well, we need to have regularization. So, in the case of the teachers, they said, you need to regularize. Well, when you regularize teachers and make them permanent, you have an effective date. They will have to get retroactive. Then increases the wage bill because they are now permanent in a higher scale, whether it's 1 increment more or 2 increment. It increases, and therefore your wage bill increases. So we have regularized teachers, some nurses, and there are a lot more nurses to be regularized, and also teachers have also asked for some more teachers. Because we met a large amount of, I think it's 500 and something teachers that were not regularized, and we embarked on this regularization program, which I must say, to be true to the GUT. They did say that was the priority. Not so much, well, they want the increase, they want one-half, but you see, when you regularize and you get permanent and you have your letter, you could then go to the bank, go for a visa. It's a security they're looking for. And to me, that must be the emphasis. Having security of tenure for your workers. And that is an aggressive program that they were pursued with the unions. And we have regularized quite a number of, at least 251, I'm not sure if I have the numbers exact, but teachers during the first 4 years. And now you have about 100 and something again to be regularized shortly.
So
and all that comes at a cost. Yes.
Over 2/3 of the amount that were met inside there would have been
regularized. And that comes at a cost.
That's additional cost.
But additional cost that the government is incurring.
But we've still maintained that it is 48 cents.
Yes.
To the dollar.
Right.
Even with that, we've been able to maintain that.
Right. Even with that. Why are we able to maintain that? Because we're able to cut more on expenditure, non-personal expenditure. We see, well, some people just call it wastage. See a lot of wastage, so we have to cut back. And we're always looking at means of cutting back. and inefficiencies.
Let me ask you, as you're speaking about wastage, I know the average Grenadian always has that particular issue. Whether it's that they see a government vehicle park up on the beach on a Sunday with a family,
right,
or that people have been leaving the lights on in various buildings,
right,
and so
right.
on. What are some of the ways that government has reduced on spending, and what are some of the savings that we've been able to make? I don't know if you have it off the top of your head.
Right. No, well, I will tell you the areas because there is a committee.
Okay.
But what the committee start looking at in terms of how we could cut back. For example, they have better control over telephone system now. Mm-hmm. So we got a new deal with Digicel that saved a lot of money. Everything. They're looking at transportation. They put in there is a tracking system for transport that could track the movement. So it reduces and the consumption of gasoline you could use as a basic thing. So they look at a number of areas in terms of the amount of paper used for printing and whether it's easier to just send an email or there's a circular. Mm-hmm. The stuff, you see, this thing may look small, but when you think about a government service of over 5,000, there is a lot of savings. Mm-hmm. So this committee that was established called Government Efficiency to look at these various areas the government could cut back in. They came up with a number of recommendations that were implemented that saved a lot of money, millions of dollars, in fact. I don't have the exact amount of money, but... Because
when you speak paper, for instance, I know that when you look at some ministries and you look at their budget for the year, you see over $100,000, and that's just stationery, that's just paper,
right. That's right.
And paper clip,
yes.
And pen, and pencil, and $100,000 for one ministry,
yes, that's right.
For the year, and you inside account things like ink there, where some of them might be a couple $100 for one,
yes.
Which adds to that as well, might even bring it up closer to 200.
Yeah. Yes.
So
the committee, so the committee looked at a lot of areas I could save. So as I said, the basic principle is if you're spending more than you're earning, you must cut your expenditure and increase your revenue. Mm-hmm. And that is what we've been doing. Cutting back. And that's how we're able to get that balance with the 48 cents. And we hope to, if we could bring it down even more. Mm-hmm. Just like the debt to GDP ratio, we are 69. The Eastern Caribbean Currency Union set the target at 60. Mm-hmm. But you know what we put in the Fiscal Responsibility Act in the future, we want it down to 55. We want it down because the better your GDP ratio and you're managing your debt, you have more money to do other things. Right? So it's just like people, the more people you have working, the more disposable income. And as people have disposable income, they spend more. And as they spend more, government collect more in revenue. Mm-hmm. Because VAT is a tax and transaction tax. So when you look at the VAT intake, there's one clear indicator of business activities, in the country, because that's where you're collecting the VAT from. And we have seen a big increase in revenues from VAT. Big increase every month from the VAT intake. So you know a lot of business transactions are taking place. People are spending in the economy. When you look at the two major places we get the revenue, source of revenue will be inland revenue and customs. And they have made a target every month. Every month, inland revenue and customs have met the target. Prime Minister saying all his life in government, first time he ever see that. Meet and exceed the target, first time he has ever seen that.
So the systems that have been put in place have been working?
Have been working. There have been increased business activity. The construction sector has grown by leaps and bounds, and that's what's driving this growth. Tourism has grown, construction. So when they said, well, we are talking about growth, but they're not seeing it. These are the sectors they need to look at: the construction sector, tourism sector, are leading, and then you have what we call the services sector. Now, the yachting, marina, we call it services sector. Education services. St. George's University alone contributes 20% to the GDP. Alone, with over 5,000 students living in Grenada, shopping here, renting, the multiplier effect in that is huge. And so the economy is doing well.
I think the average man out there, he hears that. He hears the economy is doing better, the economy is doing well. I mean, even during your lunch last week, while we were trying to have the lunch, you see the cement trucks going up the road.
That's right.
And a couple hours later, you see the cement trucks coming back down.
Right.
And so you know that economic activity is taking place. We see the truckloads of men and so on the road. But the average man or the average woman who might be sitting at home right now is still saying, okay, you've put in these various fiscal measures. You're saying the economy is growing, but in their eyes, they would like to know, how does that touch them? They're still asking, how does that touch me?
Right.
The young lady who may not have a job right now and maybe in Apwetut and St. David and listening to you right now, she wants to know, the economy growing. I'm home right now. I have 2 children, no support. How does the economy growing help me? I'm unemployed. How does the economy help me?
Right, and that's a reasonable question, because for the people, that's what they want to know. Yeah. So because the economy is growing, because you're collecting more money in revenue, the lady in Apwetut that went to the medical station in St. David's was able to get her drugs. But that's where we get the money from. So you could supply her with the drugs. To her children going to school, and they came to me and she got the public assistance to pay transportation. That's where the money coming from, for the public transportation. The old lady that came last month, we built for her a bathroom and a toilet facility to a house under the housing program. That's where the money coming from. The unpaid claims in the treasury, that down from 110 million down, that's where the money coming from. If we did not have this good performance in the revenue, where would the government get the money to do these things? When you go to the hospital now and you can get medication and you can see a doctor there to attend you, or you can get the seed program, the increased numbers and the seed programs and so on to help. That is where the money is coming from, because remember, you cannot borrow money to do these things, you know. These are recurrent expenditure that you need to raise revenue to do. So the fisherman who gets the concession 2 months ago to buy his boat engine, and he got 100% concession, and he gets concession on his diesel and so on. Government has to pay for it, you know. Government don't bring in diesel. So when you get 100% concession, government has to pay. The farmer, you know that every registered farmers, with all through the structural adjustment program to today, still gets 100% off to buy a vehicle. Never touched. Never to 100% concession.
But recently there was this certain noise was being made that that has been removed from farmers.
No, well, they could ask the farmers.
The concession, as far as I know, the concession was not removed, but the condition that a vehicle must be under 5 years old, because some people were bringing in any vehicle and just say it's farming and they bring it in. But that the vehicle must be under 5 years old. But that is when they're bringing it in now.
Not only for farmers. Any vehicle that you apply for concession for must be under 5 years. So if I am a traveling officer or a traveling officer in the public service, and he's entitled to concession, and he brings in a vehicle, the vehicle must be under 5 years. It does not apply only to farmers. Our government has passed a policy across the board. We're giving you're entitled to concession, but the vehicle must be under 5 years because of environmental concerns. In some countries, they ban it over 5 years, you know. We have not moved to ban any vehicle. We said if you get the concession. So if you do not want to use the concession, you could bring a vehicle over 5 years because you don't want to use the concession. But if you want to use the concession, the vehicle must be under 5 years because of the problem with the environment. So farmers have maintained the 100% duty-free concession throughout the structural adjustment program and up to today. That has not been touched.
And that's benefits. All of those are benefits.
A major benefit. Buy a new vehicle with 100% concession.
So even if it's a vendor in town, when they get ill, they have to go to the health center or the hospital, or so the bus driver that unfortunately may find himself in a little accident or so on, and he has to go to the hospital. All of that, these things, the ability to provide the services that are available to them are some of the benefits.
Yes, of the direct benefit. You see, I don't think people link that sufficiently. They think, well, government providing the drugs, so they have to do it. Yeah, but where is the money going to come from? Okay, just like when the previous government could not pay the salary. Remember, the parliament was closed down, so they could not go to parliament to get a loan approved. So where is the money going to come from? No government will lend you money to pay salaries. So they had to go out. And when they went to NS, and I say, well, we're not giving you any cash. We need assets. We give us the value of the assets and we give you the money. That's just how they found themselves in. They were not collecting enough revenue every month to meet the expenditure for the month.
So in other words, they were borrowing to pay the recurrent.
Yeah, recurrent. The salaries.
Borrowing and selling.
Yeah, wages. Right. So that's how the ordinary people what we call the ordinary people will benefit from the road that we build through the land to give them access to the road comes from the government, the revenue. If we do not have the revenue, we cannot. Do you remember the hue and cry over the road in La Sagesse by the Baptist Church, the main road?
Yes.
I used to cuss about it. Minister, I used to cuss about that road. I cussing everything about that road.
It's well
But you know there was a natural physical problem with the area.
Yeah. So we had to make sure that it's well done. And now everybody happy about it. Everybody. In fact, people asking me to put speed bump there now. Yeah, because I say once they reach there, you're speeding. So this the money to do these things must come from the taxes and that you raise the revenue. And if you do not have it, well, you just cannot do it. I remember one NDC guy saying, well, we're all getting money to do all this work. And when we were there, we were not able to raise the revenue and say, listen, proper management of the economy. You need a government that understands how to manage the economy properly. So if you spend all your time in fighting, you wouldn't have no time to think about managing the economy. And the Grenada people understand that clearly because you saw the result of election. As a government in power, you went there, people had to make a choice. Election is a simple question of choice, And it's what do people look for in making that choice? And you went to the people and said, give me a next term. And they said, well, we gave you a chance and look at what you did. So I hear the same campaign slogan now, put us back. Bring us back. But anyway, that is a next story. But I must say though that working along in this cabinet with the structural adjustment program and having contributed to that policy decision, this direction makes me feel very happy and very pleased that I was part of the team. And when history record me, when they record in the history, that I was part of a team that turned around the economy, that brought down the deficit, that brought down
major player too. Had to spend a lot of time out on that. But let me ask this: two issues. One, the pension issue.
Right.
The pension issue. It's an issue that's looming large over the public service of Grenada. I would have met a lady from St. John, spent years in the public service, in the hospital service and so on, and retired now, kidney problems, and the little something that she gets can't buy the medication and so that she needs. And the many others who are listening right now, who were within the public service or are presently, and we know a lot of you within the public service listening, good morning, within the public service now, who are worried now, okay, I've spent 15 years, going on 20 years, or I've spent 10 years. What happens to me when I'm finished with my service?
Right. So let's go back to the origin of this so that people understand where it started. On the 4th of April, 1983, the People's Revolutionary Government decided they would introduce national insurance, which is a good thing. National insurance scheme come. They then said in the law that they then passed the Pension Disqualification Act, which means that NIS will now pay you the pension, but government disqualified you from a government pension. So when you hear the Pension Disqualification Act, the first question was asked, well, disqualify you from what? It disqualifies you if you join the service after that date from getting a government pension. You will only be entitled to an NIS pension, which you will have to contribute to, because that is a contributory plan. So you replace now, follow me here. Before 1983, you were only entitled to a government pension because there was no NIS. So what the government said is, so you would not, the government said you would not lose a pension. It's just that you move now to the NIS. So you still get one. I hear the argument now that the people who came before 83 getting two pensions. Well, they are entitled to the one because they came before 83, which you could not disqualify them from under the Constitution. So they're still entitled to it. And they start contributing now to the NIS, so they will have to benefit because they're contributing. That's how these two pensions emerge. It's not like, well, some people get allowed to get two and others getting one. It's always been one. So the Pension Disqualification Act came, and all those who joined before 83 maintained the state pension, and after that the NIS will pay. Now, that was never addressed by any government. No, that's 33 years. Never. This government said, that is unfair. We will address it. We don't think that if you work all these years, you're going home without a pension. And the time our government put out this policy statement that will address the issue of pension, then it became a topic in the public domain. And that's our goal. A study has been done to see what it will be the cost. Now, if you want to restore it to how it was before 83, remember what the cost will be. And it's not a cost to NMP government, it's a cost to the state. So any government coming have to meet that cost. It's a cost to the state. And that's something that people need to understand. It's not NMP government that would be the cost to the state. To restore it to what it was before means that everybody who joined the work from 83 onwards will be entitled to the gratuity and a pension. Everyone. And you have to make it retroactive. So you have to calculate what that cost is. I think the first estimate that was done is over $1 billion. No, if you budget for 1 year, it's 1.1 billion. How are you going to raise that money?
For 1 year? In other words, the amount of money that we have on the budget is the same amount of money you have to find just for pension.
That's right. So where are you going to find it? And it will be irresponsible of any government, whether it's NMP or any government, to give a commitment, like to commit the state to paying $1 billion. Knowing fully well you don't know where the money coming from. So what this government have said, what we have said is that we'll go through pension reform. So we look at the situation, come up with a formula, get a study done. So study has been done, and a government team has been established to be to the union team to look realistically at the best option. The final cost will determine on the option you settle for. That is where it is now, but the Prime Minister, as Minister of Finance, and as Prime Minister has given his commitment to address the matter, and I think this is a matter that we have to address, but it must be addressed in a responsible way, because we are committing all of Grenada, not only the public workers that the benefit that we're committing, the entire Grenada, because if you have to raise an extra $1 billion, it's the entire Grenada people that will be asking to pay for it, to service the pension of public officers. So there's no simple matter, But the matter is being addressed now with the two unions and the government team, and we hope that very shortly we can see a resolution to this matter of pension, because it's one that we are committed to addressing.
Indeed. Minister, additional to that, the issue of the recent blacklisting of Grenada. It's an issue that we know. A lot of people are jumping up that we were blacklisted. But after the negotiations, I'm off the blacklist and I ain't hearing anything.
Silent.
Well, you won't hear anything. Well,
give us
okay.
A rundown.
So what happened? No, and I think there's a misunderstanding about the blacklist. People do not understand. It's a tax information agreement that we have to sign, That's what it is, to share information on citizens from the European Union investing out in Grenada, all the other countries that sign on to, that they must share that information. So, and it's a mutual agreement. They will share the information with us of our citizens if we request it. Okay. But we had up to 2018 December to put all the measures in place. So we were quite surprised when we saw our name on a blacklist. And the EU like to use the word blacklist to expose countries. But we were not afraid, because there were the tax information we have, in the US, the agreement that we passed in Parliament. They have us on a list as highly compliant, the United States. So we have put all the laws and all the measures in place. So when we responded, when we ended up on a blacklist to the EU Commission, and they looked at our argument, what we have done and what we continue to do, and they said Barbados, Panama, and Grenada will be removed, because there were no basis for putting us there, because we didn't sign an agreement that we had up to 2018 to sign. And so we are very pleased, though, that having blacklisted and having appealed to the Commission and saying, look what all we have done. We have signed up on all these agreements and all this tax information. We passed laws and everything, how we could put us in a blacklist. And the committee then studied all the information and put out a release saying that for our region, Barbados, Grenada, and Panama will be removed from the blacklist. So we off the blacklist. We have signed up to the tax exchange information. That is what it is. It had nothing to do with money laundering. That I mean, not talking all sort of things being said about, you know.
Yeah, you're hearing all this information. You're hearing all this sort of things, and I think another part of it. Who pays when they want you sign on to it? Who pays to set up the structure, to set up the office, to set up the mechanism in Grenada to provide that service to the Europeans?
We pay. It's a high cost to us.
But we don't have Grenadians going and set up business in their place.
Well, they say just in case you have Grenadians and you want information. But we pay for the one with the US, we pay the software costs a lot of money, you know, to set up the information in the Ministry of Finance. It's on the Inland Revenue.
But we had to pay.
We, of course.
And if we, in other words, the bus driver is listening now, the nurse, the police, they paid to set up that system to provide information to the United States.
Yes.
That the United States ask us to do, and if we don't do it, the blacklist us.
That's right. That's how it is.
But the United States ain't pay us a cent to do it.
No, they tell us, they say, that is what you have to put in place. These are the best systems they have for you to put in. We had to then find the money. You know, it's just same thing with the security in the airport. Because they can, if they rate your airport a second class, American Airlines not coming here, you have to find the money to put in all the security cameras and have all the scanning machine in place. But they're not coming, they say the airport is not secure. It's a high cost to the state to put all these things in place. And if you don't put it, then you face the consequences. You face the consequences. So if you don't put it, for tax purposes, you could be blacklisted. In case of the international airport, you see your airport is not secure, so American Airlines not flying to come into Grenada. And how the tourists going to come to the airport? That is how it is. You know, these are some of the realities that we need to deal with. The cost is borne by the state to set up all these things and have it in place.
Well, Minister, it's now 17 minutes after the hour of 11 o'clock on Hard Talk. Devon is here, I'm here, and we're in studio with the Honorable Oliver Joseph, and I'm in economics school today. Okay, but we don't want to take the whole program on economics. We have to talk about St. David.
Yes, of course.
And it's a big constituency. While we'll entertain calls in about 20 minutes or so, we'll start to take your calls and so. But we want to start talking a bit about the constituency, St. David. Now, you've just laid out all the achievements we've been able to do under the economic program.
All right.
I know for a fact, nobody had to tell me, I know for a fact. And for those of you that may wonder, it has been tabled in Parliament. Yeah, we used to keep Parliament open, so it was tabled in Parliament. A list of all the trips that government ministers have made. And government ministers typically do not leave the state of Grenada unless that trip is fully funded. You go before the finance minister and you say, I want to go to this meeting and so on. The first question is it funded? You're not going to take Grenadian taxpayer money and be flying. You've been traveling quite a lot. And I think we just heard what you've been trying to do, because you've been part of the team that has been able to get that GDP down from 107, 108 down to 69 through the negotiation with the various people who are holding Grenada's bonds and so on, and the different agencies and so on. You've been one of the key people that have been doing that to the benefit of all Grenadians, not just the constituents of St. David, but of all Grenadians. So you have been one of the key people traveling to do. It's not personal business you're traveling on. It is actually this.
I don't have the money to travel on personal business.
I don't think they know that. I don't think they know.
No, but you see, when these meetings are called, if you are not around the table, you don't benefit. As simple as that. And not just the government saying, well, you can't go because you can't. They look at how are we going to benefit from that if you go? If the state has to pay, what you will get in return?
These are the
yes, you have to
go by doc with
exactly. When you go to the cabinet, you have to go with a submission for ministers to travel. You know, you're not just going to tell the prime minister, "Well, I want permission to go to the meeting." Listen, you have to justify this travel. How are we benefiting from you attending to the meeting? Because sometimes, you know what, he says to me, man, I go to a meeting, they talk shop. I nothing to get from that. We have to show the benefit to Grenada of you attending these all meetings. What will Grenada benefit with a structural adjustment program? I recall going to a meeting to talk to some investors. And when I was coming back on the American Airlines flight, they had two investors who were coming to see me, but we don't know each other. Well, the next day, we went to the meeting. He came to the ministry. He said, well, came in on the flight. I said, well, I was on that same flight. He said, but I didn't see you. I said, no, I was back in the back of the plane. Because he was in business class, looking for me in business class. He can't believe the minister. He said, but how, as a minister, you're traveling? I say, well, we're on a structural adjustment program, and we have to make sacrifice. So the state cannot afford to pay for me to sit in business class. That's part of the sacrifice I have to make for the country. You see? So when they talk about ministers and the sacrifice, they want a sacrifice that we had to make.
Do you think it's first class?
Yeah,
people used to
no.
Never travel in first class.
Anytime you see me in business class, organization that send me, they put me in business class. That's the only how I get to travel. Once the state pays, in the back of the plane or in the middle, I was trying to ask them for the exit row. I said, let me sit down in the exit row, must space.
Yeah.
So we full.